Natalie, Mary,
Yeah.
and Jay, right?
Jay, no.
Is she on?
Jay is, okay.
Jay Dixit?
Yeah, I know. She was at the last meeting, so she'll probably come.
You do have a quorum if you want to go ahead and start.
We can start in as they arrived. Some people were at the last meeting. They might have wanted to grab a bite to eat or something to drink or something in between. Right. We just ended that last meeting. Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And if Erica could please take roll, that would be terrific. It looks like she kind of passed. So there's Jay. She just came.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we have everybody. You don't actually have to take roll because we did that as they entered. If you'd like, Erica. Jay has just arrived, so we're just missing Natalie and Mary, who will be arriving shortly. I got a text from Natalie. Yeah. Okay. So let me call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to this meeting. We have a very large group this evening, which is exciting. To start out, I'd like us to board members to review the agenda to see if there's any additions to the agenda. Seeing and hearing none, we will move forward with our agenda. We have minutes to approve from our July 27th meeting. And so are there any changes or questions associated with the minutes from board members? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make the motion, Gigi, to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Trish. Any other discussion of the minutes before we move forward with the vote? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as written, raise your hand and or say aye.
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 Are there any oppositions to the minutes? Any abstentions to the minutes? Okay, motion carries, minutes are approved. Our next agenda item is general public input. Erica is going to talk with us for a minute, and then we will move forward with those who signed up for public input.
Good evening, everyone. So just some guidelines for public input. Anybody can provide public input. We do ask that you sign up with me before the meeting. Anyone providing public input will have 3 minutes to do so. Any requests or comments that require follow-up can be noted and taken into consideration to be addressed at a later time. If a speaker would like to present written comments or materials, they must provide those to me ahead of the meeting or after. Due to confidentiality of individuals served, the board will not engage in discussions of any specific case. Leading discussions should not be held and promises cannot be made to anyone giving public input tonight.
Thank you very much, Erica.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have 3 members who have signed up for public input, and I'm going to go in alphabetical order. We will start with Mr. Carl Argila. The floor is yours, Carl. Are you with us? There he is.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. May I ask Erica if I am audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I noticed that there were no restrictions to entering the meeting today. I want to compliment the board on doing that. I was in communication with the First Amendment Coalition to ask for their legal opinion about the manner in which the meeting was conducted last month. They sent me the following quote, their attorneys sent me the following quote. The Brown Act states that all meetings of the legislative body of a local agency shall be open and public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend any meetings of the legislative body of a local agency, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, Government Code Section 54953. Meetings cannot be limited to authorized participants, and participants should not need to identify themselves to attend a public meeting. And that's from the First Amendment Coalition. I'll now proceed with my public comments. My name is Carl Argila. I ask and refer you to my blog, www.sgprc.net. I will remind you that this meeting will be recorded in its entirety and posted on my blog for public viewing. And my public comments today are, you are still maintaining conservatorship of my son, Cavan Argila. I consider that to be an act of retaliation for my advocacy for my son as an intellectually disabled deaf person. I am proud that my advocacy has resulted in a class action lawsuit against you, and I hope that that will improve the situation at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center for all intellectually disabled deaf persons. However, your conservatorship of my son must come to an end. My son has articulated his preferences that you cease being his interpreter and that he move to have a conservator from his family. That's posted on my blog at www.sgprc.net. So here we are in public. My son has asked you, terminate your conservatorship. You are now maintaining an intellectually disabled person in a living situation that he does not want in a group home. This doesn't happen in America, but apparently it can happen at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. Again, board, for the record, for your minutes, I'm requesting that you terminate your conservatorship of my son, Cavan Argila. So once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carl. The next individual who signed up in alphabetical order is Ms. Elizabeth Cuevas. The floor is yours, Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Greetings to the board, clients, staff, vendors, everyone is here, families, and most importantly, our clients or our consumers and our kids. Thank you for having an open meeting today. I didn't think I was going to be on camera, so I didn't have a chance to pull myself together. But I'm going to put my child's picture.
You're not being
Okay. This is my child. I'm very proud of him. He graduated this year and he got his little flag up in the community. So I'm very, very happy for that. My public comment for today is, and I'll just leave his picture up since he's the reason I'm here along with all other people served by the regional center. I wanted to make two comments. One was the Community Relations Committee. I attended last week, I believe it was. I did ask about the composition of the board because some families are concerned that maybe the board is not as ethnically diverse as the community is. I did get a response. The response was that I was mistaken and that maybe it wasn't as far as the Hispanic representation. The answer was just that I was mistaken. I thought maybe that was a little bit dismissive, and I consider Mr. Wang my friend, so I figured maybe he didn't mean it to come across that way. But I didn't get the answer as to what is the composition of the board, which was why I posed the question in the first place. So the concern is still there because the community may not know, and that's where some problems may arise when we don't get the open communication and we don't get our questions answered. So we were just asking to have our questions answered, and not muted, not delayed, not to be told it's going to be answered at a later time, because as time passes, we see that we believe that maybe you don't really plan to answer the questions because the concerns are still there and they haven't been addressed. My second point was about the survey. I did get the survey along with other families, and I was a bit confused. Of course, I answered positively in all areas, and I believe everyone's going to answer positively in all areas when they're looking for an executive director. Pardon, I'm talking about the executive director survey. So I felt as if everyone's going to answer the same, right? We all are favorably want, the best characteristics in the executive director. We were limited in a few sentences to write anything, different in what we were looking for in executive director. I felt like, I don't know whether this survey is actually going to give you any information that you might not know already. So I just felt like maybe the survey was not going to actually help in any way. Again, families want all of those wonderful characteristics in an executive director. So it just felt like, why is this being sent out in this format? Also, I was concerned that it may not be anonymous and it's going back to the board. So I felt as if maybe it should have been done by a third party. And also it just felt like it wasn't a true survey. And the board and everything that's happened, it's sort of like families are kind of lost our trust in what's going on and in the board. We definitely want all those qualities in executive director. We've had those qualities in the past executive director, and the board decided to terminate that contract. So it almost feels like, why are we doing this survey? What is the end goal, since we had that in the executive director? But I don't know. It seems like the board may not want that I don't know. We're just very confused. So we want the board to work on behalf of families and keep leaders who are working on our behalf. And if they have a personal problem or professional problem with that person, it should not affect families if the leader is working on behalf of families. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this time.
Thank you, Ms. Cuevas. The next individual who has signed up for public input is Albert Feliciano. The floor is yours, Mr. Feliciano.
Hello, thank you, Madam President. Good evening, board members, regional center staff, families, self-advocates, and members of the public. Thank you, board, for the opportunity for public comment. I have two announcements. First, just want to let families here know, self-advocates, that the Department of Developmental Services, DDS, has partnered with the State Council to provide statewide orientation and training to all participants and families of Regional Center who are interested in participating in the self-determination program. This is a statewide self-determination program orientation. It's one module. It's 2 hours in length. Participants have the option to register to take the orientation in English or Spanish. And I'll put if I can, I'll put the link on the website. So you can visit our website at www.cdd.ca.gov for more information. So I'll put the link in the chat. And if you go to the website, you'll see it under resources, and it'll be under SDP orientation. So that's the first announcement. And then the second, which I've announced before, and I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, but our office does continue to provide weekly statewide trainings on various topics. And that's every Monday at 10 a.m. The next training will be on Monday, August the 29th. And the topic will be on community resources and benefits, and that'll be in English. And again, I will attach or drop the flyer in the chat, both in English and Spanish. But thank you for this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Feliciano. We appreciate your input and the information you're going to provide in the chat. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Our next agenda item is the Executive Finance Committee report from the CFO, the financial report. Ms. Dara Mikesell, the floor is yours.
Good evening, President Ragusa, board members, and attendees. If I may share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to share with you our operations and purchase of service monthly financial report for the month of July 18th to June 30th for fiscal year 21-22 for your review and approval. In Regional Center operations, our allocation is based on the C3 amendment and is expected to meet expenditure projections. Projections include ongoing operation expenses and any outstanding encumbrances and purchase orders. Our C3 allocation for fiscal year 21-22 was at $36.9 million. You can see that here. with the projected expenditures of 36.7 million, with the projected remaining balance of 155,517. Does anyone have any questions on the POS, the operations section before I move on? Okay. Here is our POS, our purchase of service, the total of out-of-home, day programs, transportation, respite, and other services, total to 294 million. The allocation is 318 million, and there is a projected surplus in POS of about 23 million. Okay, does anyone have any questions regarding the POS section?
Yeah. Okay, we're going to wind up with 23 million. Is that it at the end of the fiscal year?
Correct, in purchase of service.
Okay, what's going to happen to that money?
That money that is not, that is not spent in POS will get returned to DDS.
Okay.
Okay. You can see here also that we do not anticipate there being any surplus in terms of the Family Resource Center, the foster grandparents, the senior companion, or CPP and DC closures. Okay.
Sarah, I wanted to actually elaborate on Bruce's question. In reality, sometimes there are late billings from purchase of service, so it doesn't immediately go back to DDS. Am I correct that there's time for late billings and things like that? Correct?
You are absolutely correct. Yes, we still have to close out the fiscal year, and there is room for any type of late billing. So there is time. It doesn't go back right away to the state. There is time before we do that.
Yes.
To ensure that we cover all of our expenses.
Thank you.
I mean, is it ever that significant that that amount of money might go back to DDS? And if it goes back to DDS, where does it go from there? What do they do with it?
It goes back to the general fund. And actually this year, several regional centers are expecting a surplus in their POS. So we are not the only ones that are experiencing a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
It perhaps is specific to changes in service provision and gradual ramp up associated with the COVID-19 return to face-to-face services, I suspect. I see Susan has her hand as well, Dara, her hand up.
Yeah, that was kind of my question. I'm wondering how much of that 23 million was authorized for services that weren't utilized, maybe because of lack of staffing or individuals served not being ready to go back to programming because of COVID. Do you have any idea how much of that was authorized and not used?
I don't have that information available. I can get that for the next meeting though.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to move on here to our statement of financial position, which is our balance sheet. And this shows here that we are in good financial standing. And then I'm going to move to the next sheet, which is the purchase of service financial report. And what this shows is actually the breakdown of all the information in the first two slides. So this is just more of a drill down so you can see the actual costs for the out of home and the other services. So it's just a breakdown of what is covered in those sections. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Based on our C3 amendment, we expect to meet all of our expenditure projections, which include operation and any outstanding expenses at this point. So these are submitted for your review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We actually had a review and approval in the Executive Finance Committee meeting. So this is for information for the remaining board members. So thanks so much, Dara.
Thank you.
We're going to go on to our next committee report. And so our first committee of the advisory committees to the board to report is our Community Relations Legislative Advisory Committee. Joseph Wang is the chair of that committee. Joseph, the floor is yours for a brief report.
Thank you. During the meeting, Maria talked about the foster grandparents and senior companionship program, and Adriana, the transition liaison, wrote an amazing counseling program during her master program and very involved with school district. She wants to help bridge the gap between community and family to get more involved in transition process to school district service. Josie, she talked about the presentation in July at Parents' Place. And Amos talked about the language access and cultural competency plan. He also talked about the work with CHLA regarding the post-COVID research team. And Sal talked about Danielle, the fair hearing specialist, improve the relationship from service coordinator to family going through the process. Nora has been very active about the school district, and she's going to submit letter to special ed coordinators to provide training, participate in CAC in September 1. And Joshua been active as a BCBA and great support to client, not just our regional center and also other regional centers. And Jessica Wilson, she secured the Greater Los Angeles of Deafness presentation with over 200 participants. Joe talked about the Senate Bill 181 is 1-40 caseload ratio for 0-5 early childhood development department. And we need to recruit 60 positions. Joe also shared the diversity infographic information. He also informed about the COVID-19 and monkeypox. And we'll continue to follow the directive LA County Health Department and CDC. Ivan also talked about the community needs survey during the meeting. That's my report.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Any questions for Joseph before we move on to our next committee report? Hearing and seeing none, we now will have a report for our advisory committee for individuals served in their families. It's co-chaired by Preeti Subramanian and Wendy Lai. Which of you would like to make that report?
Preeti, would you like to go or would you like me to?
You're muted, Preeti. Preeti, you're muted.
Wendy, can you do the report and I'll do it next month, please?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Report from the community committee from community served and individual and family served. We have heard reports from the Director of Client Services in regards to some of the new changes for our self-determination program, specifically the two options that of funding that has been changed, as well as the EVV, which is the electronic visitation verification system that will be implemented. And then there's an exciting waiting room, which is a parent support group that is going to come online in October for the self-determination program parents. And then we also learned from the Director of Community Services of the housing, different housing services, including the Section 8 low-income housing, senior housing, as well as some of the ADV, which is the supportive, which is the adult dwelling units. As well as supportive living and a couple other alternative options, such as family home agency, as well as residential placement. And then finally, we also learned and heard about the SB 188 bill that just passed, which now we have no more alternative services, which has been going on the last 2 years because of the pandemic. It's coming to an end in which now we need to be going back in person. And then finally, we learned something about from the clinical director on the updates on the coronavirus, as well as the monkeypox. So that's a brief report from the Committee of Individually Served and the families.
Thank you so much, Wendy, and also Preeti, appreciate that. The next committee report will come from the Vendor Advisory Committee. Susan Strobel chairs that committee. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I guess the main things that were accomplished this month was the home and community-based services proposal for training towards compliance was approved by DDS. That was a proposal put together by vendors as well as staff, led by Lucina. So that was approved by DDS. It's going to be focusing on person-centered planning and effective communication to ensure person-centered planning for people who are hypoverbal and nonverbal. Some of us also were able to attend the direct service provider training meeting today and provide input on ways that we think direct service providers could be better supported through training. And then for businesses that provide services to individuals, that there continues to be a staff shortage, which has also become a problem in terms of some clients not being able to get the services that have been vendored or services that are required because there just isn't staff available. Some programs are starting to have waiting lists for services as well. The vendor advisory committee made a motion to go back to the live Zoom format. So we are so thrilled that the board and committees are doing that. Thank you, Gigi. That makes a big difference in terms of us all feeling supported. I think a lot of, at least the vendor advisory committee became sort of a support group through COVID, and this format lends to that support much better. So thank you so much for that. And then I just had a question in terms of, are we going to have a full board closed session anytime soon?
We will be, yes, we will have a full board closed session at the close of every board meeting until the new executive director has been hired and brought on board.
Awesome.
We have to have some closed session updates. So thank you so much, Susan. Anything else from your committee?
No, that's all.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Comprehensive reports from each of our committee chairs so far. Appreciate that a lot. The next committee that has a report is our Strategic Development Advisory Committee, which doubles as the nominating committee, and Julie Chetney will be providing that report. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gigi. Tonight, it's actually quite brief. We have one informative piece and we have one action item as well. So the first informative piece is that our committee is actively developing a strategic planning event for all board and committee members. We took a lot of time talking about this during our last meeting. It's in the development stages, although it will be happening in September. So that took the bulk of our meeting. The action item that we have tonight is that because we double as the nominating committee, we are recommending to the board the nomination of Trish Gonzalez as second vice president. You will recall that at this time we do not have a board member in this particular position, and amongst this committee, as nominating committee, we have voted to bring to the board Trish as second vice president. And I'm going to ask if someone will please make a motion.
We can move for that. Yes, Julie, the vote will take place at the September meeting.
Oh, my apologies.
Yes, there's a 30-day review for that. So yes.
It's been a...
Yes, it's been a long day, I know. Julie is a teacher and everyone just started going back to school, including my students at the university. So it's a busy week for everybody. So we do want to move and second and vote, not move and second that we move that nomination forward. That's fine. But it's not time to vote. Yes.
I would be honored to make that nomination for Trish Gonzalez as second vice president.
Hey, Julie.
Yes.
This is Tina.
Hi, Tina.
Hi. I was wondering if you can, when you have a time, can you get back to me on looking at my application?
Applications, yes, I heard a little bit about this at the beginning of the meeting, and so Gigi was correct. All applications initially go to Erica and then are forwarded to our committee. So we're going to be delighted to take a look at it at our next meeting.
Yeah, because I'm looking forward to being back on the board.
Thank you, Tina.
We're looking forward to looking at all of your materials. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a second to move this forward for nomination and voting at the next?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of moving the nomination forward, please say aye.
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 Any opposition to that? Any abstention? Okay, So next month we will have a vote for Trish. Thank you for agreeing to serve in a leadership role, and stay tuned for next month. Okay, the next report actually comes from, and actually, are you finished with your report, Julie? Sorry about that.
Yes, thank you. Just 2 items, but relatively big ones. Thank you.
That's right. Okay, so I actually have 3 items to report on for the president's report. I wanted to start by just talking very briefly about the ARCA meeting that occurred last night. And for those of you that may not know what ARCA is, it's Association of Regional Center Agencies. And its membership is all 21 regional centers. Each regional center has an executive director present and also a board delegate. More often than not, it's the board president. So we had that meeting at the Orange County, adjacent to the Orange County Regional Center last week. A couple of things that were discussed at that meeting, just for information for the board members and the community, is we talked a lot about the legislation, updated legislation. Daniel Savino, who happens to be the main legislative expert on ARCA, provided quite a bit of information along with the legislative committee of ARCA, and it was quite detailed. Another highlight for that was a statewide count by the numbers of individuals who are participating in self-determination program at present. It is 1,637. That number was kind of interesting to me, considering how many individuals and their families are served statewide by the regional center. I actually expected it to be higher, but I think we're still in process for ramping that up at each of the 21 regional centers. So I think that will probably increase across time. Okay. All right. Then the next item that I wanted to talk with you about is something that actually I'm sure is on many people's mind. I wanted to give you a brief update on the executive director search. Elizabeth actually mentioned this evening the survey on key characteristics of an executive director, and we thank those who have filled it out. It does close this evening so that we can use that information to inform our our recruitment and hiring process. I wanted to let you know that we have a 13-member search committee. It's made up of board members, community members, regional center staff, and vendors. So it's a pretty large group, but it's a really comprehensive group representing all of various different constituents that would be impacted by the next executive director, of course. We have recruited a very robust pool of candidates who have applied for the position. It's a very large group. It's also very diverse in terms of professional expertise and leadership skills. All of the candidates have some very strong leadership skills. And it's also very diverse in terms of socio-demographic characteristics that run across the board, including race, ethnicity, and other socio-demographic characteristics. At the moment, we're engaged in comprehensive application review and preparing to embark on our interview processes. And we hope to have a new executive director in place on or before September 30th, or somewhere very close to that. As you know, our current executive director interim will be retiring on September 30th. So we're excited to continue to move forward. And we are not rushing the process. We are being very comprehensive, and we're really excited about the candidate pool that we have so far. Okay, so the next item on my report relates to the issues forum. And you may recall, if you were at the committee meetings in 2019-20 or 2020-21, before and during the start of the pandemic, when I was president of the board last time, we created a issues forum in which we had discussions of key issues associated with regional center, board, community members, et cetera. And so we have decided as a board to continue with that discussion and as and identifying key issues. So as a starting point, our 8-member executive finance committee team met 2 weeks ago to get us started with the issues forum in terms of listing and identifying a few key issues that we might want to address, collaborating with the regional center, between the board and the regional center during the fall and spring term of this board's term. So a few things that came up for that is that one member in particular is interested in talking about ABA services. And in fact, we're going to start that discussion forum this evening with a regional center presentation, and then have a parent panel next month to discuss perspectives, challenges, and needs. So we're really excited about that. Another issue that came forward from Executive Finance Committee members was discussion of mental health services for individuals served in their families. And then a third issue that came forward from the Executive Finance Committee is aging families and individuals served. And so those are three issues. You may recall a few years ago when I was the president before, we discussed vendor issues, staffing, things like that. We spent a couple of meetings working on that. That discussion was led by myself and David Bernstein at the time, who was the VAC chair in 2019-20 and also in 2020-21. We also discussed housing options for individuals served as another issue, and several other issues. We also had a panel 1 month at our board meeting in which there was a diverse kind of service providers, and David Bernstein, thankfully, helped to recruit some vendors who presented on a panel so that the board could have a very broad understanding of the intricacies and variety of services that the vendors provide. And that was really, really helpful. So, so that said, what I wanted to do now on behalf of the board is to give other board members an opportunity to put forward some potential ideas for discussion during 2022-2023 board meetings. So we have, as I mentioned, several items, and we may want to increase those items. So far, there are 3 issues that the board will be discussing during the fall and spring of this term. Again, ABA services starts tonight, finishes next month. Mental health services for individuals served is another one, and aging families and individuals served is the third one. Once we have a listing, the board members will prioritize in which order we should discuss them, and then we will move forward. So, board members, the floor is yours. What ideas do you have that you think that we might want to discuss? And I see Susan's hand, so go ahead, Susan.
I noticed that there's quite a chunk of change that goes to the foster grandparent program, and I would like to understand that program a little bit better.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you so much, Susan. I'll put that on our list. Any other suggestions from board members?
Gigi?
Yes.
I would like to hear maybe a little more what you were just talking about that David Bernstein has done in the past. So maybe do like a segment on some of our vendors, maybe the ones that are not so prominent.
Okay. So another vendor panel, we can work with Susan to get that panel going. So thank you. And I just nominated you without your permission, Susan, but I'm sure you're okay. It was a really useful panel. It really was. So a vendor panel would be great. In particular, if we showcase some of the vendored services that are not as often talked about. So we can talk about that as well. That's a wonderful idea. What other issues would the board members like to discuss this fall or spring? I see Bill's hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a discussion or more just informational, but we have a $350 million budget and it's extremely complicated. And I think if the finance team could hold a session to help people, to the community or any interested people understand the elements of that, how we manage a budget, I think that would be very helpful for kind of get everyone to a fundamental level of understanding.
That would be fabulous, Bill. Excellent suggestion. Susan, I see your hand up again. Do you have a second idea?
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, I think that continuing the conversation on equity and inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think that should be kind of an annual thing probably. So yeah. I would like to see that discussion continue as well.
So just so you are aware, we will be having a training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We actually put that in our training plan. It was actually approved by the board in 2021-22, went to DDS. It's actually one of the required trainings. So awesome. not only will it be discussion, it will be another training. So very important. Awesome. Karen, I see your hand.
I wanted to learn more about what is provided to families. Like there's that ITP part where after the school district kind of rolls you over and you become an adult, kind of what the regional center's role is in that now that you become off the district's hands and into the adulthood part, and what, you know, kind of a little bit more about that transition.
Okay, terrific, great. Any other ideas?
Gigi, I believe Tina has her hand up.
Yes, these suggestions actually, while we're happy to hear from the community, the suggestions for inclusion need to actually be from the board members. But we're happy to have, of course, Tina, can you unmute yourself? Or do you need help with that? So, because you're muted.
Okay. Yeah, we need to have the board to make affordable homes for people like in wheelchairs, you know, affordable homes for that and stuff.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
actually, we had a bit of a discussion today, a starting point in our committee for individuals served and their families. Perhaps, Tina, you might want to come to that meeting. You can get an invite from Erica if you need a way to
I can probably take like access or maybe have my staff to bring me or something like that.
Well, Tina, the meeting is on Zoom just like this one. And
okay, yeah, okay, I can do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But Erica,
so right now, because it's like it's hard, like in places like this and stuff, you know, like the kitchen and stuff is not roomy and stuff for like people like in wheelchairs, or like it's not like the bathrooms are not big or nothing and stuff like that. So that's where the board member will need help on that part and stuff, and like maybe like raise down the rent and prices and stuff like that for low income people, for houses and stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you, Tina. Appreciate your input. Anything else from the board members in terms of services? In terms of some issues they'd like to discuss at upcoming board meetings. We usually have about a 15-20 minute discussion. Sometimes Regional Center will present something to us and in response to some of the ideas and questions we have, and we can have panels and all kinds of things. It'll vary from board to board meeting. If you think of something in between.
I've got something.
Oh, sorry,
Excuse
Bruce,
me.
I missed you. The screen has so many people. I didn't realize you were there. Sorry about that. I didn't hear you.
I would like to discuss constructing effective meetings.
Okay.
And that means arriving at consensus, the value of consensus, the summary of Robert's Rules of Order and how we would use that in a meeting, how we vote, just really fundamental things.
Sure.
How effective meetings work and what good meetings need.
That's perfect. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else from the board?
Gigi, Jay here.
Jay.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to know any updates on the recreational that we talked about a few months ago about camping and other recreational activities. So is there any update, going to be any further discussion on the topic?
We can certainly talk about that as one of the items, and we can also just get an update either at this meeting or an upcoming meeting from because it's a time-oriented thing, from the Regional Center staff as well. So that's really important. Sure.
What topic was that, Dr. Ragusa?
It was recreation in camp, updates of reinstituting that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gigi.
Sure. Any more subject areas?
Yeah, another subject area would be relationships of the board and the executive director.
Okay.
What the board expects from executive director, what the executive director can expect from the board.
Okay, great. Terrific. All right. I see a question from the community for introductions. And so if people are comfortable with that, if we could just do a very quick introductions, we have kind of a tight meeting. If you can just say your name, that would be great. So let's start with the board members. and I'll just go down the list. Actually, I'm just going to go down the full list of participants. We have 49 participants, but for board members and staff. Okay, so Marty, do you just want to say who you are? Marty Fu? Marty?
Yes, I'm Marty. I'm from IT. I'm here to provide support.
Next person who's either a board member or staff is Erica Gomez.
Hi, my name is Erica Gomez. I am the Executive Assistant for the Board of Directors and the Richard G. Davis Foundation.
Thank you so much, Joe. Everybody knows you, but please introduce yourself just in case.
Good evening. I'm Joe Alverez, Interim Executive Director at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center.
Thank you. Philippe Loya, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm with Facilities and I'm here to provide IT support.
Thank you, Philip. Yvonne, please introduce yourself.
Hi there, everyone. Yvonne Gratiane, and I am the Manager of Communications and Public Relations at SGPRC.
Thank you. Bruce, just introduce yourself very briefly.
Bruce Cruikshank, Strategic Development Committee.
Thank you. Bill, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Bill Stewart, board member, treasurer, and I have a daughter who's been a 25-year client of San Gabriel Regional Center.
Thank you so much. Lucina, please introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Lucina Galarza, Director of Community Services for this regional center.
Thank you. Raquel, would you mind introducing yourself as well? Raquel Sandoval? She might be having difficulty. It looks like she's actually interpreting, so maybe that's too hard for her. Raquel is our HR director, doubling as an interpreter this evening. Okay, Lupe, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, Lupe Magallanes Angel. I am the Associate Director overseeing the Early Childhood Development Unit here at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center.
Thank you. Sal, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Sal Gonzalez, Director of Community Outreach and Compliance at the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center.
Thank you so much. Dara, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Good evening again. My name is Dara Mikesell. I am the interim CFO at San Gabe. Good evening.
Thank you. Daniela, did you already introduce yourself? I don't think so, right?
No. Good evening, everyone. I'm Daniela Santana, Director of Client Services at San Gabe.
Great. Thank you so much. Hortensia, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Hortensia Tapoya, Director of Clinical Services.
Thank you so much. Jay Dixit, can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Jay Dixit. I'm a member of Family Advisory Committee, Family Individual Served, also a member of Board of Directors.
Thank you so much. Joseph, will you please introduce yourself?
My name is Joseph. I'm the board member.
Thank you so much. Julie, please introduce yourself.
I am Julie Chetney, and I'm the first vice president and the chair of the Strategic Development Committee.
Thank you. Karen, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Karen Zarcetti-Azige. I am a board member and I have a son who is a client.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Karen. I'm losing track here, so let me just look a minute because something jumped around. Lucina, did we have you introduce yourself yet?
I did. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Natalie, can you please introduce yourself?
I'm a representative on the board and I'm on the finance committee.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Appreciate it. I'm losing track there.
Gee, we have Rosa Chavez with us.
Yeah, I'm going down the list. Sorry about that. I haven't gotten to her yet. I appreciate it though. Okay. Preeti, can you please introduce yourself? You're muted, Preeti. Still muted?
Hi.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Preeti, and I'm the secretary of the board and also co-chair of Client Services Committee.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Rosa Chavez, will you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosa Chavez. I'm the Associate Director for Family and Transition Services.
Thank you so much. Trish, would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm Trish Gonzalez. I am a new member. I am on the Board of Directors. I'm on the Executive Finance Committee. I am also a sitting member of the Legislative and Community Relations Committee, and I am retired, and I am a 30-plus year human resources background.
Thank you so much. Susan, would you introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Susan Strobel, and I'm the chair of the VAT committee.
Thank you so much. Wendy, would you introduce yourself as well?
My name is Wendy Lai. I am a member of the board as well as a co-chair of the committee for individually served and their families, and I have a son who is a client.
Thank you so much. Yaned, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Yaned Bush. I'm a manager of specialized services, special projects.
Appreciate it. I hope I didn't miss anybody, staff or board members. Everyone knows me. I'm Gigi Ragusa, board president, been on the board for 5 years, professor at USC. I also have cerebral palsy. So
actually, we missed Jesse Lagos.
Oh, so sorry, Jesse. I'm really sorry. I don't know how it comes around. Go ahead.
No problem. Jesse Lagos, Manager of Specialized Services Special Projects at San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. Thank you.
Jesse, and I'm so terribly sorry. Did I miss something else from the staff? I think I got all the board members. We do have one board member missing this evening. So that said, we're going to move on now. I finished my report. We do have a performance contract background information. Sal Gonzalez is going to present that, Director of Compliance, Outreach, and Compliance. And so, Sal, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, community members, board members, and of course, SGPRC staff. I'm just going to do a quick performance contract review based on the little bit of the background and what's it about. Since next month, we will be presenting our performance contract for this upcoming year. And to kind of go with Bill Stewart, it does kind of talk about, you know, in regards to once this approved, it's really what kind of gets our system funded. So it's very important information, both on the activity part and also understanding our financial part. But I'm going to share my screen. So the performance contract, and really what we're going to go over real quick is just the process here at San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. Let me minimize this. We're required to share with the board and the community our end of the year report from the previous calendar year. We also review current performance contract, and we're also working on preparation of a draft of the performance contract for this next calendar year. And that's what we'll be presenting next month. The process here requires, it's required by Welfare and Institution Code 4629 to be developed with the community participation. So what does that mean? Is next month, we will be putting our draft on our website. So we'll share that in our community meetings where you could find that. And any questions or, you know, just concerns you might have on activities or any suggestions you might have for us, you'll have those 30 days to provide any type of feedback for us to really review and discuss not only with our director group, but also our associates, case management, in regards to how can we implement that if we do. Our minimal is for one public meeting for input. Regional centers to use focus groups or surveys to collect information. Community involvement to develop local measures is essential. On February 28, 2023, DDS does transmit the end of the year report to regional centers with the baselines and end of the year data on public policy measures. We review the data, insert regional center information, and return that to DDS. We will post that on our website with the support of Ivan Gratiani, and then we make sure that this is information that DDS reviews for the compliance and improvement of our center. Regional centers do address each public policy measures, communities to assist in development of activities to address the public policy measures. Newer public policy measures emphasize employment to improve wages and employment opportunities. And those are things that I know Lindley works really hard in regards to what she does. And of course, promoting our paid internship program. Regional centers to select 2 measures to reduce disparities and improve POS equality and in the expenditures. So the two that we're going to be selecting are for each age group to reduce the variance in authorizations and expenditures in purchase of service among ethnic racial groups for individuals living at home with their families. For each age group to reduce number and percentage of individuals receiving no POS amongst ethnic racial groups living at homes. One of the things that we're definitely going to be improving on is through the enhanced caseloads, but also, and I feel that based as we are, we've already kind of moved out of that stay home order, but really kind of going back to some sort of community service and in-home therapies that'll really help us as well. The compliance measures include the following. We look at the current CEDARs, intake and assessment completed on time, IPPs and IFSPs requirements met, certified to participate in home and community-based waiver programs, passes DDS and independent audits, completes required vendor fiscal monitoring reviews, operates within operational budgets. And in regards to the compliance measures are included in the performance contract with DDS, but regional centers do not need to indicate activities on the compliance and measures. So really, what we're looking at is how to continue to improve our performance with activities limited through the pandemic. But as I say, I feel that we're kind of little by little starting to kind of go into a lot of the in-home type services, community-based services, and also what can we do instead of in-person meetings, activities, or trainings. But the one thing that I could definitely let you know is that we're working very closely with our departments. I actually did have a meeting this afternoon with one of the departments that serves ages 3 to 23, and they provided good insight, but also we're going to be meeting with all our departments prior to Labor Day weekend, so that way we could gather other activity opportunities in regards to that we're going to be looking at, and then putting our presentation together for the month of September. But that's really kind of just background on our performance contract. Any questions? But please go ahead and put them in the chat. Other than that, I'm going to pass it back to President Ragusa.
Thank you so much, Sal, for that important report, and stay tuned, everybody, because in the upcoming month, we will get a second representation of the performance contract. A couple of people have asked if the audience members could introduce themselves very briefly as well. So I'm going to actually ask the audience members to do that. I will start just on the list as well. There are not a ton of audience members, so it shouldn't take that long. So we're going to start with Tina. Please introduce yourself, Tina. Unmute your mic and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Tina, right? I was on the board of directors a while back. So hi.
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 Welcome,
Tina.
Good to have you with us. There's someone with a 909 area code. Please introduce yourself. A phone. 909 ending in 3 numbers 109. Could you please introduce yourself? Hello? If you're not here, we would like to know who you are, so it'd be great if you could. Okay, the next person's name is A. Scrow. Could you please introduce yourself? A. Scrow, please introduce yourself. Okay, we would really like to know who everybody is that comes to the meeting. Albert introduced himself before, but please introduce yourself, Albert, in case anybody arrived late.
Yes, of course, Madam President. My name is Albert Feliciano, and I'm an advocate with the State Council on Developmental Disabilities.
Thank you so very much. Ali Dory, would you please introduce yourself? Ali Dory, introduce yourself, please. Okay, we'd like to hear from everybody. So Bertha Monterey, would you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bertha Monterey. I'm a parent of 2 teenagers that are consumers out of their regional center. I am also the chairperson for the Self-Determination Local Advisory Committee for our regional center.
Thank you so much, Bertha. Appreciate you coming to the meeting. Elizabeth, you introduced yourself before, but you focused on public input. Would you mind introducing yourself once more and tell us about yourself? Elizabeth Cuevas?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ragusa. My name is Elizabeth Cuevas. I am a parent of an adult son that's a regional center client for the past 16 years, a little bit over 16 years. And I am a former board member and community relations committee, and I am a teacher and a independent facilitator for anyone who is looking to need any kind of help in self-determination.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, great. So the next person on my list, I'm just going down the list, is David Bernstein. David, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm David Bernstein. Currently on the VAC and been around for a few years.
Yes, you have. I think you were off the meeting when I was bragging about the work you did for Issues Forum while you were the VAC chair. So I don't know if you got to hear that or not.
I did hear that. Appreciate that, Gigi.
No worries. Thank you so much. Appreciate the work you did. Felicia, you're next on my list. Felicia Ford.
Good evening. My name is Felicia Ford, and I am a proud parent of a 20-year-old regional center client and an 8-year-old regional center client. And I'm an advocate for families, for systems of care. And I'm also a foster parent and a coach for self-determination and an independent facilitator. And I just have to say, I am so happy that we can share in this capacity and have some normalcy again. I appreciate it. I wasn't prepared, so I look like hell warmed over, so I won't be on camera, but we appreciate it. I want you to know that we really do, and this is normal for us. Whether we agree or not, this is our normal.
Thank you so much, Felicia. I've been on Zoom before early in the morning, so I know if you're not ready, it's best to have a picture. I get that. So thank you for coming.
And that takes a day to get ready, so.
Thank you so much. Next person is, let's see, Grace Cano. Would you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Grace Cano. I'm administrator of an ICFDD children's facility and adult facility. I am also a member of the VAC representing ICF homes, and I'm also a board member of the Richard D. Davis Foundation. So I'm wearing multiple hats tonight. But thank you again for this format. I hope, no pressure, but I hope, Joe, that we can kind of get back to this kind of format for our weekly meetings as well, because this has been just a wonderful relief to be able to see people and be able to dialogue like this. So thank you very much, board.
Thank you. Jay Smith, you're next up on my list. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Jay Smith. I'm a residential service provider, and I also sit on the VAC committee. Thank you
so much, Jay. Appreciate you coming. Ms. Lawson, would you please introduce yourself? You're next on my list.
Yes, my name is Tavia Lawson, and I'm a parent to a young man who is with the regional center, and I have a passion with education, and I serve as a chair to the East San Gabriel Valley SELPA Community Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Welcome. Glad you're here this evening. Next on my list is Nancy. So Nancy, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening. My name is Nancy Bunker. I'm the director of an ILS and SLS program, and I represent the SLS vendor supported living on the VAC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Appreciate it. By the way, Joe, there is a question in the chat related to something financial. So I don't know if we have a chance to answer that sometime this evening. That would be great. And I only recognize that because it's something I can't answer, and Nancy did write it in there. So you might want to take a look at that. Next on my list is Nicole Murakatani. Nicole, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Nicole Murakatani. I'm an ILS vendor. I've been working with this regional center for 31 years, and I'm also on the VAC. I represent ILS on the VAC.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it. And Nicole actually and David were both former VAC chairs and therefore former board members. So welcome back. Good to see you both. Next on my list is Nikisia Simmons. Please introduce yourself, Nikisia.
Hello, I'm Nikisia Simmons, and I'm the liaison from DDS to San Gabe.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Sophia Benitez, would you please introduce yourself? Sophia, would you please introduce yourself, please? Oh, sorry. She says, hi, I'm unable to unmute as I am feeling under the weather, but my name's Sophia and I'm a vendor that provides respite services and a family member to someone served by SGPRC. Welcome, Sophia. Happy to read your message. Glad you're with us. All right, next person on my list is Tracy Evanson. Please introduce yourself, Tracy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy, and I have an adult daughter served by the Regional Center, San Gabe, and I'm also an independent facilitator and SDP coach, and I also sit on the Self-Determination Local Volunteer Advisory Committee, and no pressure, but more pressure. Yes, I love this platform, and I'm looking forward to it coming back. Thank you. Thank you so
much. Appreciate it. Valerie, you're next on my list. Valerie Donaldson, would you mind introducing yourself?
No, I don't mind at all, Giselle. My name is Valerie Donaldson. I am a vendor of 2 adult residential facilities. I was encouraged by Lucina Galarza. She helped me develop the first one, and she has always been a supporter of mine. I thank you for this platform. It's good to see all your faces, and we really appreciate it. You just don't know how much. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Appreciate the comment, and thanks for coming. One more chance on the people that didn't actually introduce yourself. The person who's on the phone at 909 with the ending digits of 109, would you like to introduce yourself? How about A. Scrow? Would you like to introduce yourself? And last but not least, Allie Dory, would you like to introduce yourself? Okay. Well, we did that, and I think it's really important we all kind of get to know each other just a little bit. We do have a little bit more board business to have, and that is we do want to understand. We're going to start our first forum and a small discussion about AB services and policies. So Regional Center staff, the floor is yours. Apologies that we're running a tiny bit late on our agenda, but we did have a full house tonight, and I thought it would be important for everyone to get introduced.
Thank you, Gigi and board members, staff. So I have actually many presentations, but I'm pulling this up and I'll make it brief. Okay. Let's start with what is applied behavior analysis, right? So in this presentation, by the way, is something that was put together by other staff, and I've revised some of it. This is for providers, for residential providers, but I think it suits what we need. So ABA is a natural science approach to the study of behaviors of social importance. And that's very important, social importance, right? What is that? Well, social importance is what is meaningful to others, beneficial to others, and affects others, right? For example, somebody that's hitting themselves, obviously that's socially important. We don't want anybody to be hurting themselves. That's not meaningful to them. It affects others, right? Somebody screaming in a theater also, that's not beneficial and affects others. So, and et cetera. But we're also talking about children that may, or adults that may not know how to dress themselves, right? Or how to feed themselves. All of that is of social importance. So what we know about ABA is that behavior is determined by its consequence, right? And so the 3 areas that ABA focuses on is reinforcement and extinction and punishment. Everybody, when they see the word punishment, they think of the old-fashioned punishment. And no, that's not what we mean here. It's really punishment has to do in the ABA world that when something happens after a behavior and that behavior decreases as a result. The best example I have for that is that if you're speeding down the highway and a police officer stops you, gives you a big ticket, you don't do it anymore, then guess what? That behavior has been punished. In ABA, we want to focus that we don't punish the individual, we punish the behavior. So ABA is evidence-based because it's data-driven, right? So all the data that's taken that demonstrates a baseline of where an individual or a child started in comparison to where a child or individual is after a treatment, that provides the evidence whether or not the treatment is working. So what does ABA do? It enhances a person's skills, behaviors, social relationships, community life. I mean, with Hortensia and I and Rosa, we engaged in a process where we're determining if something is billable, determined to be ABA or not. And so we're looking at adaptive skills. And my argument is that yes, adaptive skills is ABA, because we're focusing on skills. And so that was a very interesting topic, and we provided some training for staff. What we want to emphasize is that ABA is not for the convenience of staff, right? Or of a parent. Obviously, that's consequential. It's not something that you solely do to control or reduce somebody's behavior. So it's useful, right, for that purpose, and it provides many ways to improve somebody's behavior. But definitely social functioning, adaptive skills, and it improves a person's environment. That's what we're focusing on. So this is a question for residential providers. But at this point, I can keep going or stop, and it's up to all of you.
I think if you could give a little more, but if it's okay with you, Daniela, next month we will have the family group from that Wendy has recommended, and maybe we could have a little bit more presentation there, and then the person who's done some research from Wendy's support group may be able to sort of chime in as well. So I don't know if you want to go a little tiny bit further, Wendy, since this is a topic area that you brought up as an issue. Would you like Daniela to proceed a little bit more? Because I know she has a lot to say.
Actually, I just missed the last slides. Can you go back up? There is some information that's important from the last slide before the questions right there.
Right here?
The next one. The next one.
The residential section.
This one.
There we go.
Okay, so yeah, so again, this is a training for residential providers. So this is a question. So if a resident has an identified behavior or problem behavior, that treatment is designed by a behavioral specialist, right? So what we're trying to say here to our residential providers is that everybody stays in their lane. You're not going to talk to an ABA provider about a medical issue. Now they can collaborate, but in the same token, if a resident has an identified restricted healthcare condition, right, you're going to have that plan created by a nurse. So that's what this is about in terms of what we're trying to provide for our residential vendors. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I just missed that slide, and I was just wondering what that information is. That's fine. Great. Thank you.
And Dr. Ragusa and committee members, I'm going to Daniela's home. Daniela is actually a board certified behavior analyst, so this is her specialty.
I know that, and I'm really glad that she's presenting. Thank you for.
Yes,
I was very modest about it, but she really is. And so I know
ABA, so I wanted people to know that she's speaking from experience and excellent knowledge. So
yes, absolutely. I see Trish has a question. So go
I think it's just been answered. So ABA is applied behaviorist analyst.
Analysis.
Analysis.
Yes.
Okay. I was
so sorry.
Sure the A was.
I am notorious for making sure everyone spells out their acronyms, and I missed this one. So I am so sorry that I didn't mention that in full spell out. So apologies for that, and thanks for asking that question.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Yes.
So here are some assumptions of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, that behaviors can be changed by individuals in a person's environment. That, and yes, that is true. I mean, sometimes, and we all know it, we see somebody when we were children, oh, here comes dad, right? Because you know that something's going to happen if you're not engaged in cleaning the backyard or whatnot. So yes, definitely. So when we're talking about our individuals, we often ask this question when we're seeing certain things that a residential provider is experiencing. Well, what changed in the individual's environment? oh, then we realize, oh, the favorite person left, or the person that had been caring for them left. And so if they're nonverbal and they're behaving in a different way, then we can try to pinpoint the issues. But ABA also deals with observable behaviors. That's very important. It's because we have to measure them. So we're not dealing, but we're collaborating with mental health specialists, but specifically ABA deals with observable behaviors. It also relies on methods that have been scientifically studied and proven to be effective. So we all subscribe to JAVA, the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysts, and this is a journal that's widely renowned. There are other journals, but this is where we extract our peer-reviewed articles that demonstrate the different treatments that are out there for anyone, really. I've always been a big supporter that ABA is for everyone. So in ABA, behavior is also known as everything a person does, right? Laughing, crying. So a lot of times when our staff says they're having a behavior, I really like to redirect them and say, be more specific, right? So some behavior may be desired, other is maladaptive, then that's where we get more specific. So when assessing someone, we want to always identify the behavior that the team has identified to be changed. It's very important that we're targeting the issues, and we also want to prioritize. If an individual is having several issues with their maladaptive behaviors, we want to go with the most significant one. For example, self-injury or harm to others, then we can start identifying or targeting other problems. So the defining the target behavior is also very important. We want to do this because we want to be specific when we're collecting data. Okay, and this is just a short, and again, you know, this is information for our providers when speaking about tantrums. If they say, well, they're tantruming, that's not the best definition. We want to go with a good definition is defined as kicking, punching, crying, etc. And so you see the other definitions. Mad, well, what does that look like when they're mad? Okay, and if you all like, this could be an endpoint, and we can discuss how SGPRC funds ABA. And at this point, I have on the team, Rosa Chavez, Lupe Magallanes Angel. I have Yanet, who also has a lot of experience in authorizing behavioral services, and Hortensia Tapoya. So we're here to answer your questions.
So could you just very briefly give us an overview of how it's funded for SGPRC?
Yes, so for SGPRC, we really have to start with, we defer to, if the individual has a diagnosis of autism, then and is under 21 years old, then they are to access that child's private insurance if they have one. Or if if they have Medi-Cal and the child is under 21 years of age, then they can access their managed care plan. However, regional center, we can fund a behavioral treatment for individuals that are 21 years and older. And so that's very important because the disability is lifelong. And unfortunately, in the past, we were restricted by different guidelines. But no, we're so happy that now we've released this restriction, and behavioral support and treatment is beneficial for all. So ages 3 to 21 who have fee-for-service Medi-Cal, that's something specific that my colleague Hortensia can dive into. But essentially, it's a type of Medi-Cal that we can fund. And individuals that are 3 to 21 who are not covered under the autism insurance law, we can fund for them.
Yes.
So that's basically an overview of what Regional Center funds But Hortensia, you want to explain?
Yes, just a little bit. So let's say that the individual has autism or pervasive developmental disorder, then private insurance would be able to fund the service. However, if they have any other diagnosis, we know that Medi-Cal would pick that up for individuals under age 21. And if they had fee-for-service Medi-Cal, then that defaults to regional centers. And at that point, it wouldn't matter what age they are. We would fund regardless. We also assist families who are having financial hardships with copays, and they go through a review process. So there's numerous ways that we can assist. We also work in collaboration with several liaisons to Medi-Cal managed care and connect families to their Medi-Cal managed care plan if needed, if they're struggling. I was actually involved with the BHT transition, the behavioral health treatment transition to Medi-Cal, the funding, and there are meetings that are held. They used to be held monthly, now they're just held quarterly. And any issues that come up that our families bring up to us, we bring up to that team. And it's representatives from every single LA County managed care plan that attend these meetings. So we collaborate and we address issues. And there's no need to wait for that meeting. We can go ahead and communicate with them via email, and we get permission from families to have that contact in writing, and we're there to offer that support as well.
Tatiana, you want me to go over how we support children early on while they're still in early intervention?
Yes, please.
Okay, so for children that are in early intervention, as you know, we are basically first and foremost a development program, and we look at overall the development of the child. In early intervention, we don't focus so much on diagnosis, but how can we support with parent education? How can we support that parent in supporting their child when there are some delays in development? There are occasions when the child is demonstrating some behaviors that hinder the process of receiving early intervention services. So we do have programs, primarily in the infant programs. The official name is specialized instruction programs, but everybody refers to them as infant programs that do have a specialty with behavior in which the early interventionist receives support from a BCBA in supporting that early interventionist with being able to learn techniques on how they can actually work with that child and that family to support that child and family in meeting those developmental outcomes. So we start very early if needed. And if the child is found eligible and diagnosed with autism, if their insurance is not taken over by the time they finish early intervention, then the regional center does pay for a small period of time as they transition over to insurance services for ABA services. So it could be a 3-month authorization that we do. It might extend to 6 months, but usually within that time frame, we transition children into services paid by their insurance. Okay, there's 2 questions, Anila.
Right. Karen and then Trish.
Thank you so much for that information. That was really helpful. Just, hearing about the services there. I didn't realize, one, that that ABA goes all the way into adulthood and beyond. My question though is, you mentioned something about going up to the age of 21, and then after that, that the regional center would provide services for ABA if needed. I have 2 questions really. One is that a referral through like the individual or the families, or, and 2, I know the regional center is always the payer of last resort. So how does that work out? Like, is that granted that the individual is no longer on their parents? Because I know insurance sometimes goes into 25 years old for an adult.
Right. Okay.
So how does that work?
I can help you answer that question. So let's say that the individual is 20 years old, 11 months, And typically, majority of our individuals have Medi-Cal, and maybe not as primary necessarily, but as secondary through the waiver. And so what happens is, if they don't qualify through private insurance because they don't have a diagnosis of autism or PDD, but they do qualify because they have a different diagnosis under Medi-Cal, then Medi-Cal would be funding it through Medi-Cal Managed Care, let's say LA Care Health Plan. LA Care Health Plan would be contacting us at that point saying, this individual is ready to transition over to regional center funding. At that point, we would review the report that they're submitting to us. The team would have a discussion. We would talk to the family. What are your concerns? Do you believe that this is still needed? So it's a team decision, and then we get back to you. Now, if the team believes that that is something that is needed to continue, then we take over that funding if the individual meets that criteria. Now, let's say that the individual has private insurance, has a diagnosis of autism. We know that legally they can stay on your private insurance for a longer period of time than they were allowed to years back. So then they would be able to remain. But if you were to need assistance, like I said earlier, with co-pays or anything like that, then that's when you would ask for that and submit information that we request from you, like to prove that you're having the financial hardship.
Rosa, would you like to add anything? I know that you experience a lot of these situations.
I was just gonna add the piece about the co-pays, but Hortensia just covered that because you and Guadalupe kind of covered our age bracket as well, going into adulthood. So co-pays is another way that we can support families that may have insurance, but they may have numerous therapies that they're funding their child for or young adult for. And co-pays is one way that we can support in those instances. There is a financial screening assessment that takes place. We can also team the requests. Again, practicing person-centered practices, we can come up with a way of supporting the family usually pretty quickly.
Thank you. I've been taking a lot of notes on this because it's really interesting. So sorry if I'm looking like I'm looking down, but because I only use one hand, I actually use my phone to take notes on the notepad function. And so forgive me if I'm looking down the whole time. I see two more hands. Both Trish and Wendy have hands. We actually have three hands. The third hand, Lucina has her hand up. So I don't know what order you want to take them. Lupe and Hortensia and Daniela.
I think Trish has had her hand up for a long time.
Right, Trish.
Go ahead, yes.
Thank you. A great information. I did have a couple questions just kind of to follow up on what Karen had asked about, and that was some great information that you provided. But is there training or is there anything that's provided to our families that you serve, both in residence as well as those that are in homes with this information, number one? And then number two, with respect to when they transition and goes into the funding, where you talk about it goes into a different process when they reach age 21, depending upon where they fall in the categories and which boxes they check. But what is there training to help a family navigate that? And then my third question is, you talked about the team will make an evaluation, make a determination if they are going to be able to be helped and assisted through regional center. If they are not, how is that communicated and what are some other options? Is there an appeal process? Is there a process where they can have discussions if maybe they don't fully understand the process? So I know that's kind of a three-part question, but I'm hoping maybe you can provide some answers there.
Yes, I'll start with the first one, definitely. And that's part of our, policy. What we could do is add in our material meeting so that you have it, our BHT policy, Behavioral Health Treatment Policy, which talks about all of this. So there is an introductory training to parents or caregivers, and this is a requirement to complete these sessions for behavior intervention strategies in the home. But in terms of, I know you brought up training for families that for residential children or adults that go into residential homes. Lucina, I don't think we do that?
No, so my hand was up to let you know that in addition to providing services in home, we develop specialized facilities, and a lot of our level 4 facilities, typically 4G, H, and I, have a focus on behavioral intervention, and we develop specialized residential facilities to focus on behavioral intervention. So in those homes, and we have children's homes too, and David operates a lot of those. And these homes, they hire the BCBA or the behavior analyst, and they provide the service as part of the rate that we fund them. And depending on their level of care or depending on agreement, it's 6 hours every 6 months, 8 hours every 6 months. It could be 4 hours a month, depending on how specialized they are. And so we sort of agree on what those hours are going to look like. And so they do an assessment when they first come in at 30 days. And, we'll talk later about what a functional behavioral assessment is. And then they develop a plan and the staff get trained on it. So in addition to our families, we do have residential homes that specialize in having a focus on behavioral intervention. So I wanted to make sure people knew that for children and adults and seniors.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. I see Wendy has a hand, and then I see just one more hand, Wendy. And then because of the time of the meeting, I think we might have additional questions next month regarding this because it will be part 2. And then because we want to have the executive director give his report and any other announcements. So Wendy, last question.
Yeah, actually, I think this would be nice. I do want to wrap this up. The issue form that the board, that I sort of wanted the board to take, there's a group of parents out there who's been in the system of ABA for many, many, many years. So the issue that we want to take up, and all those information you provided, great information, wonderful. But for a group of parents who's been already in the system for a while, and our children has already been in the ABA therapy domain world for a while, this group of parents that are coming in, which they'll be represented next month. The reason why they're coming in next month is because they really want to condense their findings and their requests in a way that's concise, because we're giving them 10 minutes only, just to kind of give the regional center a heads up of what that issue is essentially the quality of ABA services. In short, the preface is this: all the money both regional center and the insurance has been spending on these ABA vendors, I don't think it's been making our money's worth. So these parents are coming in with the aspect of questioning the licensure of BCBA. They're questioning the regulatory process and system and legislation. They want to change the legislation to have a greater, stricter oversight to ensure quality being provided for our families through the regional center and the insurance. One last item that might be of interest to prepare for next month when these parents bring forth their issue and the request is that just the most recent ARCA publication, there is an article in there specifically addressing that issue. And I think the title of that article is To the Bottom, which talks about the whole money-driven aspect of the ABA service, therefore impacting and affecting all the quality of the service. So all that's been provided today, it's great because that's supposedly in theory and in clinical research what it's supposed to do. But on the ground, we haven't been seeing that. And so this group of parents is coming in with their years of experience, their finding in research, and their knowledge of the different legislation that has been passed and not passed. And I see Regional Center as an entity that we're hoping as a group of parents with enough expertise and enough clout, so to speak, to drive those changes as a force of an engine for change. So from the, and then ultimately impact the quality of service from the licensure to the regulation to the legislation. So that's what they're at.
So just as a reminder for everyone on the board, staff, and also for our audience members, the group of parents that may come and present some of their research next month will not be talking about specific children or adults. their family members will not be discussed because, as we know, that can't happen in the board meetings. And it's not about advocacy separate from one another. Our goal, Wendy, in talking with the Executive Finance Committee, was to try to find ways for vendors, regional center families to work together to perhaps impact that regulatory information and the legislation. And Wendy is speaking directly from one of the Capital Currents articles that came out through ARCA with Daniel Savino. So thank you, Wendy, for bringing this issue up. And thank you, Daniela, Hortensia, and staff for moving that forward. We know we're running a little behind on time, but it was a really important introductory discussion. And again, this is not calling out any vendor. It's not calling out anything. It's just a way that perhaps we can work together to provide the very best experiences and also maybe perhaps impact the legislation associated with it. So thank you so much, everybody. I want to move on now to one of our final agenda items. And thank you for being so patient, Joe, with your report, the Executive Director's report.
It was such a great discussion. I was almost ready to yield my time. Thank you so much, Daniela and team. Very, very proud of all of you. And that was just a tremendous discussion and presentation. Thank you, President Ragusa, and good evening, board members and board of directors. Good evening, vendors, community members, and regional center staff. We have 4 items to present. In the interest of time, we'll do them very quickly. I have the first item, and as you know, during the past several weeks, we've been discussing Senate Bill 188, and for good reason. It's packed with lots of important information, particularly the trailer bill language for the developmental disability system. And in attending the ARCA directors meeting, it was the day before the ARCA board of directors meeting, at the top of everybody's agenda is these policy positions, because it's going to be, to meet the requirement of that policy, it's going to be such a heavy lift for all 21 regional centers in recruitment. And so we talked about different aspects of that. First of all, the policy positions that we're discussing are the 1 to 40 caseloads. And this is so important. We think it's really good statewide policy, and it's going to really infuse our regional center system in a positive way. We see that families coming in with their kids 0 to 5 coming into our system, they're going to need a lot of guidance. They're going to need a lot of help navigating our system. They're going to need a lot of help with navigating what services are available, what services can be incorporated into their service plan, and discussing that service plan on a quarterly basis and having that close contact with their service coordinator throughout that process. So we see the policy as being very, very good. Before it was, it would just be a year at a time, and it would just be too long between visits, and families would sometimes feel a little lost. They're struggling just to understand their child's disability as it's brand new during the ages 0 to 5. And so we think the policy is going to be really helpful, very good for families. In order to meet the requirements of this policy, we've developed our early childhood developmental department, and that includes infants and toddlers 0 to 3 and preschoolers 3 to 5. And as you know, Lupe Magallanes is overseeing that department, providing excellent direction. And we're gearing up for our massive hiring. We have determined, based on the stats that we have available, that this will require 60 new service coordinators, which is a massive lift for any center. And so we have been strategizing with our executive team, with our interim CFO, and trying to come up with a strategy for recruitment. Now, we are still waiting funding for these positions. We thought we might have news from DDS by now. We're still waiting. We're told it's going to be coming any day. That's going to be very important in terms of informing our recruitment, how many service coordinators we can hire each month, and how we're going to go about that. We're estimating we may be able to hire 4 a month, but of course we'll have to adjust that up or down depending upon what our allocation is. And our understanding is we're only going to be getting 75% of that allocation because we're this far into the fiscal year, and also because the department probably doesn't expect our regional center system to meet that requirement by the end of the fiscal year. So it may trickle into the first quarter of the following fiscal year, or maybe even beyond. So we're waiting for that information, and we are going to vigorously recruit. We have our HR department is strategizing with her, Raquel Sandoval, our HR director, strategizing with her team. And we are posting positions. We'll be posting positions on our website using it, outside resources as Indeed. And we also have a job fair that we're planning with Cal Poly Pomona. So very excited about that. I'm going to move on over to the Home and Community-Based Service Plan proposal, and also the Early Start Technology Lending Library, Lucina Galarza.
Hi, thank you, Joe and President Ragusa. Just on the HCBS, and Susan mentioned a little about this during her presentation and review of the VAC agenda and minutes for last month. Together with our vendor advisory committee, every regional center was given approximately about $284,000 to develop additional means to get our provider community aligned with our home and community-based services final rule. And some of you board members, the final rule means that our system has federal monies coming into it, and so we have to abide by federal rules and federal waiver requirements. One of them is the home and community-based waiver, which means that we have to provide services that are inclusive and that provide choice. And so to get our provider community in line with that, the system has provided grants to specific providers to maybe hire job developers to get our people out in the community for jobs. Some of our residential homes have been able to hire a person-centered trainer to get their staff to really think about person-centered thinking and how do we give the voice to the person, to the people that we serve, so they drive their own services. And so what the department has done, instead of giving the money to individual providers, they're saying, okay, regional center, here's $284,000. Use this to do some provider wide trainings, some provider wide services, and figure out what it's going to be. Work with your vendor advisory committee and develop a plan. And you have till August 30th to submit it, and we have till December 30th to get contracts to use that money. So together with our VAC, Susan and some of her chairs for her subcommittees, we were able to develop a plan. We have 3 providers that we are going to contract with, and they were agreed to do. One of them is going to focus on person-centered thinking, planning, sort of training our providers in large groups. And then the other one is doing communities of practice. And communities of practice are providers who can share among each other some of the practices they're using in their programs to meet the final rule. And so we're going to develop some communities of practice. And our third one that Susan mentioned was we have a provider who's going to work on communication, low tech and high tech devices, working with individuals who may have, and Susan words it better than I do, issues with communication. And so we're going to focus on that. And so we have 3 focal areas as part of a proposal. Our proposal has been approved by our department. And now I'll be working on contracts with them so that we can encumber those funds, which means we can contract with those providers and get those funds so that we can start using their services. And so I'm working on that next week, and more to come on that. So I wanted to make sure you knew about that. It's a little more detail than you wanted to hear probably, but we were successful in getting our plan approved. So I'm proud of that. And we worked hand in hand with our VAC members. So it was a great partnership. The second one is the department approached us to do a lending library for Early Start. Now, our agency has 2 lending libraries. We developed our first lending library for our families, individuals who needed access to technology because of the pandemic. And we have that through Parents Place. And we provided Parents Place with our own iPads. And then we converted, then we went and bought laptops for our service coordination staff and some of our staff who work from home. And so with those iPads, we were able to serve a lot of our community during the pandemic. That was our first lending library. We then got another grant to have Eastern Shores of Southern California be our second lending library. And so Eastern Shores of Southern California is more of going to be a long-term vendor, whereas Parent Place is really meant to address the pandemic, but we continue to use them. And so we have 2 lending libraries. Well, the department felt that we were, I guess, very well versed in that. And so they said, hey, there's an opportunity for you to get federal monies to do an Early Start lending library for Early Start families. And with the growth that we're gonna have at Early Start, because the eligibility requirements have changed, and we know there's going to be more families asking for service, it's going to be a great opportunity for us to have a lending library. It's called a technology lending library. So it's lending iPads, lending laptops, lending tablets, purchasing connectivity, teaching our families how to do an email, teaching them how to use platforms like Zoom. And so I submitted a proposal for $110,000, and the partner must be Parents Place. It must be our Family Resource Center. So I'm meeting with them on Monday. Lupe and I are meeting with them on Monday to see what other questions they have, and hopefully they'll approve this proposal and submit it to the federal government, and we'll be able to open a third lending library with Parents Place. And so I thought I'd just let you know of that exciting news.
Thank you so much, Lucina. We're going to do a very quick COVID-19 update and monkeypox update with our Director of Clinical Services, Hortensia Tafoya.
Thank you so much. Yvonne is going to share our website. She's very excited to show you the new section that she's added to the website. It's News and Alerts, and you will see it there. But just to let you know, we have been going down with COVID-19. We're now at 10.4%. In the past week, number of individuals served were 26. Provider staff tested positive, only 6 this time, and number of SGPRC staff 4. The 2-week total went down to 76 from the previous week of 118. We're hearing that for COVID-19, there's going to be a new booster available coming soon because what's going on is that most of the latest infections have been due to the Omicron subvariant. What is it called, Joe? I'm like losing it right now.
Well, there's so many variants going on. The higher the number, the more infectious the variant is. But they're creating boosters, both Moderna and most recently Pfizer announcing that a booster news should be coming out within weeks. We expect it this fall to target those subvariants.
Thank you. And then for monkeypox, let me share my screen real quick. We don't have any reports of numbers at our regional center. We also don't have any reports from provider staff or SGPRC staff. And then you can see here the numbers for the county, and then within the state and the whole United States. But things are looking good in our neck of the woods, and we hope that they stay that way. But we're going to be keeping a close eye on that for everyone to know. Thank you.
Thank you. And President Ragusa, that's our director's report.
Thank you. I wish everyone would just call me Gigi. That would be better. So please do that, everybody. I like that better. So that's what I'm used to. Okay, this actually, if we have no other announcement, this concludes the open meeting. We will have a very brief closed session, just a little bit more update to the board regarding the executive director search. And so if we could just make me the host, and I'm assuming Joe will actually come with us to that closed session. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. And thank you. It's good to introduce everybody to one another so we can all know who everyone is. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next month if you're not at any of the other meetings that we have. Bye-bye now.